Hey, hey. Hey, guys. Welcome back to Between the Set. I'm your host, Coach Lakeisha. And today's episode is about the side of this sport that doesn't show up in highlight reels. Yes, we're talking about corporate ownership, club politics, coach diversity, and the burnout nobody talks about. Very interesting episode. Let's get into it. Volleyball is exploding right now. More fans, more media deals, more money flowing in than this sport has ever seen. And on the surface, that's a great thing for visibility. For opportunity for our girls who dream of playing at the highest level, yes, all of this is great. But growth changes things. It changes who's in the room making decisions. It changes how competitive and how political this sport feels from the inside. And it's putting a spotlight on some things we haven't fixed yet. Who gets to coach, who gets recognized, and who's quietly burning out while holding all of this together. So today we're talking about four things: the new corporate money in volleyball, what the money does to the politics of the club world, the diversity gap still sitting at the center of our coaching ranks, and the burnout that's becoming an epidemic among the people running practice every single day. First, let's start with what's probably the biggest structural shift volleyball has seen in a generation: the rise and wave of corporate and private equity money in volleyball. Here's the model, and it's actually pretty fascinating. Instead of building a pro league first, hoping for fans to show up, the youth pipeline is built first through dozens of clubs across the country, tens of thousands of athletes. And then the professional league is launched on top of that foundation. Youth, college, and pro all connected under one brand. And it's working. Sold out matches in its first season, broadcast deals with major networks, and now real institutional money. Investment groups, you have former athletes who are combined to create an investment group. You have private equity funds buying stakes in individual franchises and so forth. Now, I want to be balanced here because there is a real upside. This kind of investment means better facilities, more visibility in our sport, more legitimate pathways for girls to see volleyball as a career, not just a college scholarship, but an actual profession with media deals, NIL deals, and sponsorships behind it. That's huge. That's something a lot of us have wanted for a long time. But here's the part that doesn't always make the press release. When a club becomes part of a larger corporate or franchise structure, the feel of that club changes. Decisions that used to be made by a director who knew every family by name might now run through a regional or national ownership group. Pricing structures shift, as we have seen from time to time, year to year, month to month. Expectations shift, and smaller independent clubs, the ones that have been backbone or grassroots of volleyball for decades, are suddenly competing with larger organizations that have national branding and institutional money behind them. When volleyball becomes a media product, the families and coaches inside it start to feel like they're part of a business, not just a sport. And I think that's starting to hit home now with a lot of families. So that's the macro picture. Now let's bring it down to the gym floor because all of that money and growth has a direct effect on the day to day politics of club volleyball. Anyone who's been around club ball for more than 5 minutes knows politics has always existed. Who makes a team? Who gets the playing time? Which families have relationships with which coaches and which directors? That's not new. But as the stakes have gotten higher, as more scouts are watching, as more scholarship and pro pathways exist, as more money is on the table, especially now with all of these brand deals and sponsorships, those politics have gotten louder and more consequential. Think about it from a parent's perspective. If making a certain club team is now perceived as a real step toward a professional pathway, not just a college roster spot, the pressure on that decision goes up. We see it all the time with tryouts and kids wanting to make certain club teams. Tryouts get more tense, roster decisions get more scrutinized, and coaches end up absorbing a lot of that pressure, fairly or not. And then there's the competitive landscape between clubs. As bigger, better funded organizations expand into new markets, smaller clubs start to feel that squeeze. They feel it for players, they feel it for gym space, and for the coaching talent. Because larger clubs get more athletes, it's more advantage for better players, more advantage for larger gym spaces, and more advantage for better coaches versus the smaller clubs. That can create a much more cutthroat environment among clubs that used to coexist just fine in the same region. I'm not saying any of this to be cynical about the sport. I love the sport. The clubs and coaches who hold onto their values, transparency with these families, honesty about playing time, development over politics of the sport, those are the coaches that are going to stand out more, not less, as the landscape gets more corporate. Now, let's talk about something that doesn't get nearly enough airtime. Who's actually coaching this sport and what that says about access and opportunity? If you look at the data on coaching at the college level, women of color remain significantly underrepresented in head coaching roles for women's volleyball. We're talking single digit percentages of head coaching positions nationally. Even though the playing population is far more diverse than that. And this isn't unique to college. It shows up at the club level too. Who gets invited into the rooms where decisions are made? No. If you look at it, there's not a lot of diversity. Now, organizations like USA Volleyball and the ABCA have task forces and committees specifically focused on this, trying to widen the pipeline, create mentorship opportunities, which would be awesome, fund certifications for coaches who might not otherwise have access to them, which would be great. And that work matters. But progress has been slow, and that gap is still real presently. Why does this matter beyond just fairness? Because representation changes what's possible in a kid's mind. Think about that for a second. It sends a message about where she belongs in this sport long term. And when clubs and programs don't reflect the communities they are recruiting from, that's a trust gap too. There's also a practical barrier that doesn't get talked about enough: costs. Certifications, coaching clinics, travel to showcase events where hiring happens, all of that costs money and time. For coaches who are also working full time jobs outside of volleyball or who don't have an existing network already inside the sport, that's a real wall, not because of talent, but because of access. Let me give you an example. I hadn't coached volleyball in years. I came to this sport. My daughter was playing volleyball at another club. She joined one of the other club, and one of her coaches from high school, I reached out, asked about coaching openings. I got connected. I didn't know anyone in the club space. I didn't even know she was in the club space, but I asked and I stepped out there and I was able to gain a position in a club space. So yes, if the network isn't already there, if you don't know anyone. And yes, of course, you have those that are like coaches phase or team phase or director phase or club phase or things like that when it comes to parents, players, and coaches. But take that leap of faith and step out there because there is a real wall and there is a lack of access and diversity in this sport. Things should reflect what they are and what they provide. If you want these type of players and you always have these type of players on your team, show them that diversity in coaching as well. Now, don't get me wrong. You have some clubs and some players and some coaches and directors. They get it right. They get it right. They have those coaches and they have those players who are, diverse. They switch up coaches every year, different teams, different ages, all that, good stuff. Yes, you have that diversity pipeline, which I think is good because that helps to become more diverse in your coaching and coaching styles. But yes, you have to create that network just like with any job because getting in and getting that access, yes, it's hard, but you can do it. Last topic, and honestly, this might be the one closest to home for a lot of you listening: burnout. Let's be real about what coaching actually looks like for most people in this sport. You're not just running practice, you're scheduling, you're managing parent communication, you're doing film. You're handling tournament logistics. You're often doing all of this on top of a full time job. And increasingly, on top of an admin layer that's gotten more corporate and more demanding as clubs scale up. Yes, it's getting real serious out here, guys, as these clubs are scaling up and becoming more corporate. As for most club coaches, the pay does not reflect any of that. Let me be the first to tell you, we're talking about people putting in 20, 30, sometimes 40 hours plus a week during season for what often amounts to a part time stipend. In off season, there is no stipend, no benefits, and very little institutional recognition for the actual scope of the job. There's no recognition for anything you do, you just do it. Here's what makes it worse. As the sport gets more competitive and more corporate, the expectations on coaches go up. But the support often doesn't. It doesn't follow at the same pace. More pressure from parents who've seen the pro pathway and want it for their kids so bad, and I understand. More administrative requirements from clubs that are scaling. More comparison to clubs with bigger budgets and more staff. I see it every day, all the time. And coaches are absorbing all of it, usually quietly, because there's a culture in this sport of just pushing through, which we always do, of not complaining, of being grateful for the opportunity. I understand that mindset, but that is why I created Between the Sett to talk about everything in the volleyball community to help us move forward. I've lived that mindset, but gratitude and burnout can exist in the same person at the same time. And if we don't start naming this, we're going to keep losing good coaches, especially coaches from underrepresented backgrounds who often have the least support and the least margin to absorb unpaid labor. If you're a club director or a parent listening to this, the single biggest thing you can do for your coaches is simple recognition. Say it out loud. Pay them what their time is worth when you can. Protect their off season. All right, let's bring this together. Volleyball is growing, and that growth is, in a lot of ways, something to celebrate. Absolutely something to celebrate. I love to see where this sport is going. More visibility, more money, more legitimate pathways for our athletes than this sport has ever had. But growth without intention creates winners and losers. It can widen the gap between big clubs and small ones, between coaches with access and coaches without it, between the people who get recognized and the people who quietly hold everything together. So here's what I want to leave you with. If you're a parent, see your coach, really see them. The hours, the unpaid texts at 9 p.m., the emotional labor of managing 12 teenage girls or boys and their families. A little recognition goes a long way. If you're a club leader, as you grow, don't let your values get left behind. Pay equity, club development, coach development, and real pathways for diverse coaching talent aren't extras. They are what determine whether this growth actually builds a healthier sport or just a bigger one. And if you're a coach, especially one who's tired right now, I see you. Trust me, I see you. This episode is for you. You are not alone in this. And naming what's hard doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you honest. And honesty is what's going to move this sport forward. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a coach, a director, or a parent who needs to hear it. And if you have a story you want to share about diversity, about burnout, about navigating this new corporate landscape, reach out. I'd love to feature more voices on this topic or any other topic you would like to discuss here at Between the Sett. Until next time, this is Between the Sett. Take care of yourselves out there. Stay focused, stay locked in, enjoy your summer. I'll see you next time. Bye.